All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited that MSET and Tech are able to bring you this webinar this evening. We have Jessica Lemmo from Baltimore City Public Schools, and she's going to be talking about using 21st century skills to engage readers and monitor comprehension. Jessica has been with Baltimore City Public Schools for 21 years. This is her 21st year. She's a model teacher and library media specialist and an instructional technology coach. She was the 2021 Maryland School Librarian of the Year. She's a coach and an ambassador for numerous ed tech tools like Everfi, Pear Deck, Edpuzzle, Common Sense, Maryland Code, and so much more. And we're very lucky and excited to have her here this evening. She's presented all over the place, and we get to steal her for an evening at MSET. And so, Jessica, thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you for having me and welcome everyone. All my resources that I'm going to be talking about tonight in the presentation can be found at this link that I'm jumping in the chat for you. So feel free if you want to open up the presentation to follow along, or it's a Wakelet, so it has actually all the resources linked to them in it. I also have an attendance certificate that you can earn if you fill out the form, and even a badge if you're somebody that likes to collect badges for attending events. I have a badge form that you can fill out to earn a badge. But thank you everyone for giving time up in your evening to come and join us this evening. I greatly appreciate it. So I'm just going to get ready to share my screen and then we can get started. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. Whenever you have one, I will answer them to my best. And Brandy will let me know. So when one pops up, I'm just going to adjust. Oh, hold on, I'm going to stop sharing for one quick second. Sorry, I wanted to see it. Forgot to turn on the sound. Sorry, because we will have a little bit of sound today. There we go.
No worries.
All right, so tonight I'm going to touch on a lot of different resources that I use in the library. I also kind of dabble as the computer science teacher, technology teacher, and I use these with a lot of the teachers in school when we do a lot of collaborative projects to get rid of boring old book reports. I know most of us probably growing up, we had to do those book reports when we first had to handwrite them or make a poster to go with it. And it'd be very frustrating when we goof up and make mistakes and had to come back to do it. Now we can do it digitally, and with today's society, most schools, pretty much everybody's one-on-one or has access to a lot of technology. So it brings the kids in without killing that love of reading. And I'm not saying we always have to use technology, but kids really get into it, especially with some of the aspects that we're going to be talking about today. They really can invest in what they're doing and get hooked on it. So like I said, feel free to take the link I put in the chat, and I'll have a QR code at the end if you want to snap it to get the Wakelet that has this presentation and all the resources and some extra stuff, like I said. So real quick, my name is Jessica Lemmo. I have been teaching in Baltimore City schools for 21 years. This is my 21st year. I started out as a classroom teacher for about 5 years. I taught 3rd grade and 2nd grade, back and forth and looping a couple times. And then I moved into library media when I got into my master's and finished my master's, and really got into ed tech while in my master's, we had to create a blog. And my husband and I hadn't been living in Baltimore very long. We moved from central Pennsylvania, where we met in college. And I kind of kept a diary of all these restaurants that we were trying, because both of us came from small towns where there wasn't a lot of variety. The college we went to was a small town, so we didn't have a lot of variety there. And before I knew it, I kind of became known for my blog, and then I started writing for the Examiner and some other local Baltimore areas. And it all stemmed from a project I had to do for an ed tech class, and that's when my love for ed tech went from there and drove what I really enjoy today. So we all know that book reports, a lot of kids roll their eyes at it, and there's not much we can do to get them to tie in with the old way of doing it. So that's when technology comes in and we can get them to build their excitement, bring in a hook. They can use their creativity, they have better ownership, but we still can understand, did they get what we want them to get? And I saw a couple extra people drop in, so I will drop that link one more time for everybody to use if you would like to. But even with technology, we can still embed not just our Common Core standards, but IST. If you teach library, the American Library Association standards, lots of different standards can be tied into and overlap. So there's a great crosswalk in between all these standards to bring in. And I love this little meme talking about how somebody used the dictionary for their book report, and it just always kind of made me laugh. And it was just basically how we all used to have to do it. And I give it 5 stars out of 5. And she read the dictionary for her book report. So one of my big things is when we're incorporating is the 4 C's of 21st century learning. A big proponent of using this for 21st century skills. It helps our children and our students become well-rounded individuals, especially in today's workforce, using technology so more, even if it's just for using a database system or for doing inventory, but and learning to cooperate with others while using this technology and collaboration. So the 4 C's are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So we're going to talk about those a tiny bit before we start looking at some resources that we can use to incorporate these 4 C's. So like I said, one of my big philosophies is if we teach the children for the world they live in, they'll be more invested in what we did. And if you look, this is an Instagram post I had done one time that says, when children create for the world, they make it good because they like it. If they're putting it out there, think about TikTok, Snapchat, all these things these kids do. But if they're doing it for their teacher, they make it just good enough. So I always tell my kids, when we do these things using technology, I put it out there. I use Wakelet all the time, and I put all the kids' work in Wakelet, and I share it with our whole school community. I share it with the district. I share it with the other librarians, because I want the kids to invest in what they're doing. And it gives them a voice. Even those students who are that quiet one that doesn't want to raise their hand, that doesn't like doing the group work, that doesn't like turning and talking, they can really be shining through some of these activities because it gives them the chance to show their creativity and what they enjoy, but maybe they're just not a talker. Another great thing is it incorporates those testing skills. Keyboarding. My kids, when I teach keyboarding still, and my students are like, why do we have to learn? I can type really fast on my phone. And I'm like, but text typing and actual typing on the computer are completely different. So, but we do keywording, cutting and paste, drag and drop. There's all these different things are now embedded in the different tests that we take. And some of the programs that we use incorporate that. So it gives them great practice without even knowing it. So today's students are moving beyond the basics. So we're looking at the 4 C's, these super skills. And this, if you look at, kind of breaks down the hierarchy of different areas. And the 4 C's are into all the different areas that are built out there with media literacy, financial literacy, incorporating into UDL, into media, to technology, life and career goals and skills. These 4 skills are essential for our modern students to succeed, not just in school, but in the workplace. And they often make the biggest impact in terms of setting your students apart when applying for starting their careers. I push my kids, especially my 8th graders, as they start to 7th grade and 8th grade in university to start thinking of choice. I have them start Wakelets or portfolio, especially if they wanted to get into some of those higher level schools. I say, show your work. It's so easy now with the skills that you're taking and the products that you're producing to create it in a Wakelet, to create a web page, just like we would as teachers and educators or applying for any type of job would want to showcase what we've done and what we're proud of. So we have critical thinking brings our students to solve problems, okay? It helps them not just learn a set of facts or figures, it helps them discover what these facts and figures are for themselves. So critical thinking is a big part of these 4 C's. They're asking questions. They become engaged in the world around them. They help others think critically too. It's really interesting how, even if it's an online discussion board or face-to-face communication or a Zoom session, we have a math tutoring program that goes on during school hours in our 6th grade class, and they're talking with people from somewhere else, engaging in math while the teacher's going around and helping other groups of students. So they're working with other adults, not just in our building, but other places, and they're working on their critical thinking. It's important for 21st century because it's harder than ever to verify that accurate information. Because I push that with my kids, like, you can't go on a website like Wikipedia and be like, oh, everything on there is true. We really have to think about what is real out there and what is not real. I use examples that current events of people they know about, like when there's fake posts about someone has passed or someone's pregnant. We tie those things in because what is fake news, what is real news, and what information is out there is valuable. They think about critically for spending time online or asking why and what is good online and what's not good online. And it works to help students to use it alone. And if they build these skills, they combined it with the next skill we're about to talk about, and then the sky is a limit. So the next one is creativity. So if we take our creativity and our critical thinking, we are really going to build something great and positive that the students are going to look forward to. This is like you have it or you don't have it quality. No, that's not true. Students can learn to be creative. And the more they get into and have the ability to investigate and to apply skills and test the waters out, they learn to become more creative. That doesn't mean every student is an artist or writer, but instead it means they're able to look at a problem from multiple perspectives, and one way or another, maybe somebody else is going to see it, or they'll bring a new way to look at it that somebody else doesn't. Students learn about their creativity and they learn how to express it in healthy and productive ways. They also become motivated to share that creativity. They invest in it. They become exhilarated to explain it and show it to somebody. So if one student creates an interesting or innovative solution to a problem, then they share it. Then the next student may become sparked for an idea to either make it better or to add to it and work together. So creativity works best when we then combined it with the next skill. So they all kind of scaffold on each other and go up with each other. So collaboration is important because it doesn't matter if students realize it or not, they probably work with other people for the rest of their lives. Even if you're working from home when you get older, you still have to talk like we are now, like how on a Zoom, on a Teams call. So pretty much every job requires you to work with someone at some point in time or in one way or another. So collaboration is a key component to building skills for real world. It's also helpful for them to learn that other people don't always have the same ideas that they do. And sometimes you have to practice collaborating and knowing, okay, I understand what you're saying, but and expressing those feelings and working together to meet in the middle. So then comes communication. So we have the collaboration, and then we have the communication. And this is working together to come up with ways to quickly and clearly tell others this information. And we're very text-based, SMS, emails, social media, etc. And it's never been more important for students to learn how to take this information in a way that others can understand them, because it lacks a tone. And I talk about this with my students all the time, that when somebody texts something to them or they read something that somebody posts or comments, it's actually like can be misconstrued all the time. So they have to learn about how, if I type it in all caps or if I make something in bold, it's going to convey a message a certain way. So they learn how to communicate that and get across the important stuff and the non-important stuff. And once they have that locked down, then they can streamline their ideas and make a positive impression on those around them. So it's still important to note that communication isn't enough on its own, but it helps with the 21st century skills to succeed if we put all those 4 C's together. So now that we have the 4 C's together, which we have critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication, we put them together And students become a one-person think tanks, is how I like to look at it, because they're able to process, they're able to produce, they get together and they can achieve most anything. And maybe one person's really good at critical thinking and one person has that higher level creativity. It's great to put those together, not just in a group, but also individually. So now how can we get readers to use these four C's in 21st century skills and still invest in what they're doing and still kind of be interested and engaged in what we're doing? A lot of kids, my own kids, I have sixth grade twin boys. They're reading Percy Jackson right now. And my one son says it's the best book he's ever read, but we still struggle when he has to do his nightly reading. So I talk to him. They watch the movies. We're talking about how the movie was different versus the book as they're reading. We have discussions. So we're just pulling it in, trying to engage them, even though he likes the book and he's loving the book, but still getting him to do the homework for the book is a struggle sometimes. So finding ways to incorporate things that they enjoy. And I've actually seen them, text a friend and they start having conversations. I've kind of seen them do their own little book talks with their friends, and it's really cute. I just don't want them to know that. So one of the first ways I look at doing things with kids is we create a cartoon version of a book. Creating comics or graphic novels is the big thing. They're the books that fly off my shelves in my library, and it's an engaging cross-curricular activity that levels the playing field. It helps students demonstrate learning and scaffold bigger projects in any subject. So a lot of these tools that I'm talking about today, we can take and put into a math class. We can take and put into a social studies, a science class. You can take a lot of these tools and use them across the board, not just in a library or an ELA class. You can use them all over. And this is another that's great to boys because they like that comic. There's always that thing of little boys like the superheroes. Girls like them too, but the comics brings them in. And both girls and boys love the comics and the graphic novels. So one of the sites that you can use for graphic novels is Make Believe's Comics. This one's great, has lesson plans, has writing tools, has prompts, even has an iPad app. And you can even download like worksheets that they plan on before they use it and go online and use it. So this one's a bit more simplistic. The characters are very, they're just not as colorful, but it's great to use. You can go in, you can create four panes, you can go in and do 2 panes, you can do multiple pages of it. It's really great. And I highly suggest checking out the lessons. It's really good to use to start them off. But my favorite one to use with comics is Pixton, and their education version of this. I love it. Each kid can go in and create their own comic book character, and that's one of the first lessons I do at the beginning of the year. And then they can use their classmates in their comic strips. We love it. And so this one works on any device. Doesn't matter as long as you have internet connection. They log in. We use Google for everything. Has lessons to do with it. PowerPoints to use and talk about different aspects of comics. This here is an example I made with last year, 4th grade. This math teacher was struggling with fractions and her students getting the difference between numerator and denominator. So I came up with the idea and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to have the kids create a comic strip of explaining what a numerator is and a denominator. So that students were presented with, you have a friend or a classmate or whatever position you want to put it in, who comes up to you and says, hey, I don't get what this is. I'm so confused about fractions. How do I know what the numerator is and what the difference is between the denominator? And they had to create at least a 4-pane comic explaining it. So they had to present the question where someone came up with asking, then going in and doing explaining and then wrapping it up. And so they each took and created, in the 3rd pane here was an example of what I did. They broke it down. So they took their terminology, their vocabulary from what they learned in math class, and we came up with a storyline, and we had some great ones. I had princesses, I had dinosaurs, anything. I had superheroes. Some of them just used classmates, and because they can pick their background in this one, They can change the actions and the movements they do, the different types of speech bubble. So that was great there to pull in like a thinking bubble to an excited bubble or any different aspects. And like I said, Pixton has lesson plans already built that you can use to go through that. And then what I did was we printed them out, hung them up, but then I'm like I said before, I'm big on Wakelet. I then got the link for each one and I put in a Wakelet and we shared it with their families. So everybody got to see it. I put them up on the board. They read their comic out loud to their classmates, which they weren't nervous about then because they were really invested in their comics. So they're like, oh no, I have to get up and speak in front of people. No, they didn't. They were excited to show me to put it up on the board and read it. And some were like, well, can I have my friend read it with me and I'll read one part? They acted it out almost. It was great. I wish I would have videotaped it. It was kind of a spur of the moment when the one child and the other child were like, well, can we act it out? And I said, go for it. So it was great. Every time we do these, the kids love them. You can have them even work in partners and together and create a story together. It's great. The students always enjoy making the comics for this. Another one is I love using Canva and Adobe Express. We do this all sorts of projects. One of my projects I do every year for New Year's is one word, where they create one word to focus on that year to represent them, whether it's joy, a color, whatever they want to focus, and then they add graphics and whatever to represent them. And we check in later in the year and look at it and say, are you doing this? Are you finding the joy in what you do? But you can do posters, you can do social media posts, so much more. And the great thing is Canva and Adobe Express have tons of educational templates already built in there. Read these worksheets, students can type in them. They love them. They're both free to use. You can set up and if you set up the educational account in Canva, you have tons of free graphics that are built in that you can use way more than just the basics. So sign up for the free educational one if you have not. Another way I've done different ways of doing this is having them do online reading logs and reviews. A lot of kids lose the paper. I don't know what happens. My own children have lost their paper. They have to do a daily thing I have to sign when they read the chapter in their book. It gets misplaced. So I've done different ones. Some you have to pay for, some is a small fee, some is a big fee, depending what your school. I had a school kind of invest with me and they purchased it for the whole school. It was great. What's great about these though is they can go in, read a book, write a log about it. I can check that they read. They can tell what they liked about it, but then they can write a review and then other students can go in and check out the review. So it's good from a library perspective because if they're looking for a book and they're like, I'm not sure what to read, but they see one of their classmates read a book that sounds interesting to them, then like, ooh, and then they come and ask me to find that book with them. So it's a great way for them to collaborate and communicate, not just show what they know. So these are two websites that you can use. There's a bunch of them out there. Sometimes I just do it using like a Google form and then, or a Wakelet, and they post anonymously. So there's different ways that you can do it. And if you're not sure what Wakelet is, it's very similar to Padlet. I just like it a little bit better than Padlet, honestly, myself. This is another big one that my middle school kids get into and love, the 5 photo storytelling. And I used to just do this in Google Slides, or they would do it in a Google Doc or something like that. But now we use things like Canva and Adobe to do it and create videos. So what you do is you pick 5 photos, just 5 photos to tell maybe an event in a story, or to kind of tell the basis of a whole book or an article that you read. But these photos build emotions, they provide information, they encourage action and create questions. And it's the same thing you've probably heard, a picture tells 1,000 words. It tells a story, and it does. So, and the kids are like, how am I writing a book review with just pictures? And I get into that and I say, you have to select those pictures that are going to convey what you want to put across. So sometimes I have them write captions, sometimes I don't. But there's a sequence to these pictures. And if you pick the right pictures and put them in the right order, you will have a great representation to what you're going to do. So here are the 5 different pictures. So you're going to have a cover shot. This establishes characters, location. I've had where the kids use their Chromebooks and they set up the picture of themselves or a friend and them doing something. They create it. They find props, especially if they're home, or I have them search online. But we do talk about how to know which pictures you can use and which pictures you cannot use, and giving credit. Then you have the establishing shot. This is to create that situation of what's going to happen. It's kind of that going up the roller coaster to build suspense. Then you have that detailed shot that they have that character that's in a situation. And this works for current events too, if you have them doing a current event activity. Then you have the filler. So it's leading up to the problem and the outcome. And the very last shot is the ending, how it ended. And like I said, this is a great tool to use with Canva and Adobe. So here's an example I took from one of my students. We were talking about fake news. So they went online to pick something that happened in real life and kind of bring it out. Now, this one, I did not have them do any captions with it. So I promoted it where they were to pick these 5 things to tell about an event that they found online. We went on to a website one day and they were to go through and pick an event and then tell the story. So obviously, just from looking at this one, there was some sort of a disaster. It was an earthquake that came through Japan and we went through there. So they picked their establishing shot, their cover photo first to bring it up. And then they had new scenes with a little bit of tidbit here because they used a picture from a newscast to help promote it a little bit. And then they went to their detail shot and they focused on a specific detail. So they were kind of talking about how others were helping recover this. So that detail shot right there was very important, they said, because, you know, there was somebody who was in the armed services helping an elderly lady, probably escaped. Maybe she was trapped. So brought that in. And then they talked about the filler shot that brought in images to help tell more of the story, a candid and wide angle to bring in more. So it was about how this boat was there. And then the closing, we're back to people in a closing group together and struggled to find for this Japanese earthquake because the story wasn't over at that time. And this is, the person was like, I couldn't find that closing to how it resolved, but this image showed how the survivors were coming together, waiting to see what the next chapter was going to hold for them. And they were working together. So they did a great job telling that story on the lesson about current events. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in and let us know. And we can, if you need anything explained more or to slow down or anything. The next one is videos. And the sky is the limit on this one. There's so many different ways you can do a video. You can do the 5 photo shoot as a video and incorporate music and sound effects and all kinds of things. You can do interviews, have the students create a script to interview book characters, how they think they'll respond, a news report that talks about the plot, a trailer for the book. I had students do this for book fair. They love doing it. Recreate, set up a stage for parts of the story. You can use things like Potown, Adobe Express, Animito, Canva, all these different ones. A lot of places have free aspects for education. So make sure you look to see what is included in this free and what's not, and what meets what your school allows. So some of them have already built-in templates. So here is a Potown one that I've used before about a book. It was a simple one. The kids were learning about how to build one of these and incorporate different aspects. So I kept it very simple. I had older students in 6th grade read a picture book that they would recommend to a younger sibling or family member, or the kindergarten class. So they were coming up with a way to build a way to express this about the book. So I'm just going to turn this on real quick. have students start something like this, I give them the sentence leads a lot so that they know how to build and what to incorporate. I want them to feel successful and not struggle and not sit there and go, I don't know what to put in. What should we include? So I make examples like this that are very spelled out. And then we work through it together. So I'll even do something, a simpler version of this for like second or third grade, giving them that spelled out version. I make one as an example too with them. I'll give an example like this where it's the kind of like fill in the blank. And then I'll actually make an actual example of what it should look like. That way the kids know what's expected. They know the types of things to put in. We've talked about the language. They know the vocabulary. We know about sentence structure, how many sentences are good for a paragraph or to give an explanation. What should a sentence look like? So we make sure we spell it out. That way they know what they're doing and they don't feel bad about themselves or down in the dumps because they don't know what's going on or what to do. And that's a big thing. If a student has a project that they don't have examples or they don't have it step by step of what things they should have if they've never done it before, they feel defeated and then we're just going to lose them. So they have to have it so they feel really good about what's going to happen. This next example was an example where we were doing a unit and talking about real life situations incorporated into stories and how we can relate with stories. So we were also tying in our common sense digital citizenship with this lesson too. And I like to bring in a lot of different our units in together. So this was my example of, we were talking about a story about how a character in the story was very conflicted about spending time with others and felt like one friend was spending a lot of time with them and not the other friend, and there was some jealousy. So then I pulled in about thinking about how much do you spend online versus offline, unplug yourself. And is the technology good for you? Is it what's it doing? Is there a plus to technology? So we took different points of view of it. And so one of mine was how me as a mom of twin boys here, they're a lot younger in this picture I use, they're in 6th grade now. They play travel sports. They have all kinds of things going on. My phone is my lifeline because it connects to our Alexa in the kitchen, the calendar. It's on my computer. It's on my phone. It's on my husband's phone. So we know where everybody's going. So I was talking about how my phone and my calendar like solve my world problems because I would be lost without it. So let's look at an example of this. But it's an example of how we use Innovate to build the video project.
Ain't nothing better than watching you smile. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ain't nothing better than watching you laugh out loud, my baby. Ain't nothing better than watching you be you. Ain't nothing better than right now. In your eyes lie the secrets I don't wanna miss. Put your hand in my hand and make a fist. Grab my shirt, curl your lip as if you know. Staring back in my eyes saying please don't go. I don't know what I know, what I know, what I know what it is that you really, really want or you need. I hate every moment away from you. I see you sleeping in my dreams. I know you're in your mother's arms. I know that you're safe from harm. You know I'm coming home real soon, and I'm bringing all my love for you.
So what's also great about this is we can tie in those real world connections. And I have the conversations. I have no problem sharing with my students that, yeah, I do have social media accounts. And we talk about what's personal, private, what's good to share, what's not good to share, because we incorporate social media kind of posts into our lessons and what we're doing. And I talk about the whole privacy, and I have my personal accounts and then I have my professional accounts. And there's a difference of what's shared on the two because I don't put my children out there for the whole world to see. I do that on my personal, where I keep my profile private and only those who I know can see it, versus my professional. So it's really out there, and we can incorporate a lot of information in today's society and bring it to real world connections. Another one that my kids really get into is, I like to call them literature maps. So a lot of stories have books that have like a timeline and locations in them that are hard to keep track of, or just putting them together really helps and take the story to another level. So what we do, and we've used a couple different programs to do this, we create what are literature maps that are either events or locations in a story, and we put it on a map and we make it interactive. So it tells the story and creates a journey to tell what happened in that story. Or if it's a nonfiction about something that happened, it's a book report about an event that happened in the world. This is a great way. You can use something like Google Earth to create pin drops, and it's like creating your own virtual field trip. So the students go in and they create it, and you can add information, you can add pictures, and you can drop from different locations where there's a pin on the map and tour it around. It's great. They get really into this. And it's changed a little bit over the years. It was Tour Builder and now Google Earth, but there's a lot of other ones. And I linked, if you use the slide and the stuff, and I also have them in the resources section. ThingLink, if you've never used it, you can take a picture and embed links into it. So like one year for Read Across America, I found a book about each state, and I linked a video of that book or a trailer about that book on each state. But if they were using a picture of one state, not the whole US, they could create links or drops of a pins with links in it of a picture, of a recording they made, of a video, or a blurb that they found online about that. And they would just, it's interactive and it brings the book together. Or maybe if it were in the story, the characters going to different areas and they're learning things, or it's a mystery, and you can say, oh, at this museum he found this, and you put that information on that pin drop. And another great article was the one I linked at the bottom right hand from Ditch That Textbook. If you've never done those different series of Ditch No Homework, all that, there is a great article in here about creating interactive maps for deeper learning, which incorporates a lot of what's being talked about on this slide. This one's kind of an old one, but I still love it. The kids get a kick out of it. There's tons of different word cloud generators out there. And we talk about how the more you enter certain words, like if I put the word Harry Potter in here, Harry, like 50 times, it's going to be larger than other ones because he's a main character. So I put that in there. So it allows you to see if the kids were able to pull out who the main characters were, the supporting characters. Some word cloud makers, you can do it in a shape. So they can pick a shape that relates to the story and allows for more creativity. So they're able to pull out character traits. If you want to do it on one character, what are their character traits? Which character trait do you feel is the best? And have them put that one in there a bunch of times so it's more prominent. The kids really, this is something they can get into. They can be creative. They can change the colors. They can change the shape depending on which word cloud maker you use. But it's a great one to get across simple things by chapter or by sections of a book or the entire book. Another great one that my middle school students love is creating text messages. So there are a bunch of websites out there. This is from iFake Messages, and it is a text message between Katniss from the Hunger Games. And they're going back and forth having a conversation. You can have them do it per chapter. You can have them rewrite something, maybe change the ending to go through, and then you create this picture. So you're limited to how much you can fit into one text. So sometimes they have to create multiple images, and then I have them put it like in a slide or put them in order in something so I know which one's which. But then you have these, and it's a great creative way for the students to pull out that information, say, what do I think is going to happen next? Make some predictions, make some inferences. What conversation do you think they would have had if they were able to have a phone while they were stuck inside the Hunger Games? Things like that. So the kids really have to start critically thinking. Another one that my kids in 3rd through 6th grade love doing is trading cards. And I actually print them off in black. I won't do in color, black and white. And they end up leaving with a class set of trading cards that each kid had created. So this is on Rethink What, right? It's, if you have never used it, or the website, they have some great interactives on there. This is one of my favorites. So you can pick the type of card that you're making. They have some templates, but it's like if you were doing one on a Black History Month project or Women History Month project or famous scientists or famous artists. They go in, they pull in all that research that they would be doing, and it's just another great way to create it. And there is a way to save this. It's just a little practice because it saves it as a file that would look nothing like a trading card. So you have to talk about how you have to save it. And then when you come back, you have to upload it again because it will not save automatically, that you can just come back and do it later. You have to download something and then re-upload it. So you have to think about that in time-wise. If you're going to have it done in a whole class. So what I do is I create a worksheet or a Google sheet that has all the topics on the card that they fill in ahead of time. So then they're basically copying and pasting or retyping it by split screen. So they have it, so they're not just like working on it, plugging it in as they do their research and then have to download, come back. So if I have them do the work on a separate area, paper, whether it's physical paper or online somewhere, they get all the information that they need. You can get the card done in one class period, depending on how long your classes are. So blogging is a great way. Like I said, my interest in ed tech started stemming from a blog that I did. So blogging has a lot of aspects, increases reader comprehension. You can have discussions about it. It gives students who are that quiet, shy one a great way to express their thoughts and what's going on. You could do interpretations of what they're reading in their own words, just by kind of keeping it like a diary as they read, instead of having them, take notes or answer questions. Have them create a blog each time they read and think about, oh, I thought that this was going to happen and then this happened, analyze it. Have them comment and post feedback. You can do authentic writing practice, great way to get grammar skills, spell checking, all that. Go through and it just become an expert the more they put it out there. So if you've never heard of this website, class tools, this is just some of the tools that are on this website that you can use. But here's another text message generator. Here is your own little Wikipedia timeline generator, a fake book. Make a Facebook page, profile page about a character. There's a medieval story time generator, Twister, which is like Twitter. There's a lot to do. This is a great website to use different things, to pull up some more fun and creative ways to incorporate what you're doing and get them to look at things in a different way. This is a great one to use with little kids. It's called Write Reader. So what's really nice about this is they're creating an online book, whether you're doing ABC book or a book about the life cycle of a plant, whatever the topic is. And if you notice here, you have the kids writing where it's spelled wrong because they're little kids. And they go in and they write it. They sound it out the best they can. They pick the pictures. It has built-in picture bank that you can pick from and backgrounds. And then as an adult, you can go in and as you talk with them, spell it correctly. Put it out there, especially for like kindergarten and first grade as they're first starting. And then you can publish it in the global library and they become publishers and they're excited about it because other people who use the program can read it. Like I said, it has Pixabay image search built into it already, has some great lesson plans. Then what you can also do is you can share the books, the link to it, to the families, put it in a Wakelet, say, here's our class books that we did about this topic. And it's great. I love a website that includes lesson plans and resources that you can use so you're not reinventing a wheel and saves you that precious time. Now, as I was growing up, I love those choose your own adventure books. I loved them. I feel like anymore, but there's a couple ways now that you can do your own. Have them recreate the end of a story or reinvent the story. This website's great to do it, but you can also do it in Google Forms and in Google Slides or PowerPoint. There's ways of doing it, but Have them rewrite a star of the point. Choose your own adventure. Create their own story. And if you pick this, you're going to end up this way. If you pick to go down the river in a canoe, you're going to end up at the base of the volcano. But if you chose to walk up the mountain, you end at the top of the volcano. So it really gets the children to look at different points of view of a story and think outside the box. Now, I love doing QR codes. We have a cell phone policy. The students aren't supposed to have them, but it's a great way when you have visitors in the building or families to have QR codes. You can use a QR code to do the kids' projects. And a lot of websites create the QR code right there then. You can print it on stickers. Sometimes I've had where they do a book review or make a video for the book trailer, and I print the QR code off in a blank 30-second, a sticker, and I put it inside the book, and then they can take it to their Chromebook, scan it, and pull up the video. Another student, maybe it's a student from a few years ago. Some of my the books that we have are slowly dying. The stickers fell out, got ruined, but it's on my to-do list this year to start doing this again. But they can scan it. Parents can scan it. When we do a lot of like coding activities, it's hard to share. So I put it in Wakelets or whatever, and I put it around my room, around the building for parents and visitors in the building. It's a great way to share whatever you're doing. And pretty much any digital project can be done that way. This is one that I did a lot with students when we were at home in virtual school. Book snaps, very similar to Snapchat. Take a picture of the book, use emojis, use text pictures, pull out, underline and pull this way and really just dive deep into what you're doing. Another one I did. Yes.
Can you go back to that last slide and just repeat that? You cut out a little bit, so I think that
sorry, no problem. Yes. So I did this one a lot during virtual when we were with COVID, but I still use it in the classroom now. So this is very similar to Snapchat, if you think about how Snapchat works. But take a picture of a book page, and I had them find, you can do vocabulary words, you can do plot twists, you can do climax of the story, or where the characteristics are really, yes, some Brian said he loves a good business. Yeah, I found this online and I did it with my students and they love it, and they still love it. And I actually promoted this with families, and we had a family one where parents, show us what you're reading, and I showed an example. We had some parents who shared it. It was a great way to incorporate it, and we had teachers share it. So if you go on like Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and you put in that book snaps hashtag, they're there. It's a great way. Yes. Yes. I love, yes. Good comment. Another one is video discussions. Flip, which we call Flipgrid, is now Flip, and if you use Class Dojo, has portfolios. Doing a video log, a vlog about it. And what I like about Flipgrid, well, Flip now especially, is, you have some kids that especially during COVID, they didn't want to show their background, they didn't want to show their face. They're very self-conscious of it. So there are filters built into it, and they could put stickers and do all kinds of discussion. And I love having students comment on other students' work. It's a lot of work to teach them how to do it, but I love how on Flip they can go in, and I required, just like if you were taking an online class and you were in discussion board, you had to make a post and then reply to 2 people. Well, I require that too, because it's a great way to get those 4 C's and to build on the lessons. So have them make predictions, have them talk about, I didn't like how this happened. The ending sucked. Like, I told them to be real. I just said, don't use language you can't not use. But they really got into it. And some of the kids never really showed their face. They put stickers over it. I was fine with that, even though they were talking, as long as I could hear their voice. Especially, I don't know about anybody else during COVID, they didn't turn their cameras on, but at least I could hear them, because they didn't always want to unmute either. But this was a bit more private. They weren't talking and say in front of everybody. It was little pieces of chunk of a person at a time. So it was a good way to do it. But you can do something like this on Flipgrid or Flip, and Class Dojo too. Now this one has a free and a paid version. It is an app, and people do have to have the app on their phone. So it's one of those things where I've done this, I've gotten parent permission. Can we download this app? We're using the free part of it, but they do different things. So I do things like this, like over winter break and spring break, even with families, like you create a mission list. Can you find a picture, put yourself in a picture of reading your favorite book, and they snap a photo, or find props to go with a story and place it up and set a scene. And there's different things that you can do: video, a photo, you can do a GPS location, a check-in. We did one as a staff this year, back to school, and we were running all over inside and outside the school area, and it was great. It was great team building. We had a great time. And you can do it. This one, like I said, there are free parts and there are paid parts, but you can only have so many people and so many teams on the free. But it's a good thing to do, especially like if you have a long break, a summer, if they have to do reading, or just fun way to build school community with your families. So this is a great tool to use too. But you do have to have a phone or tablet to get the app. Another one is augmented reality. This one had more free features, but it's slowly going away into more paid for one. It's very similar to the one before, except you set up the play field and set the boundaries. Like, we have a big yard in the back of my school. So I did this one year and I piloted it out for the program for a little bit, and I had checkpoints, and they had to go around. I used the school iPads, and they had to go these different checkpoints. And so it's like geocaching, if you've ever done geocaching, where they had to look for things and find it, answer questions when they got there. And it was just fun. They had a good time. It was a great way to incorporate some of the activities we were doing. So you could do this for books, ask questions, go around different parts of the school, different things. It was really fun. It is, and it's great, especially when it's time to get spring and everybody's antsy. So I use Pear Deck all the time. I don't have Pear Deck open today, but what I would like you to do is, I know I give you a lot of information. If you could pause and think, write in the chat one item, one takeaway that you could see yourself trying out this year. And yes, sometimes it may take a little practice to use it. I always highly recommend you play with everything first before you put it out with the kids. But if you saw something that in this presentation tonight that you would love to try out, share it in the chat. I'd love to take a minute. And if anybody has any questions, it'd be a great time to put that out there too. So while you're working on that and putting anything that you loved, that you saw tonight, would love to try, just a reminder that everything is in my Wakelet, this presentation, the QR code links to it, and all the resources. This is the Wakelet. I have everything here for you to use to come back. So I suggest you bookmark it, save it. However you do everything these days, you can follow it if you use Wakelet. But I have the presentation, like I said, I have, if you want to get an attendance certificate, I have all the resources I've talked about, links to them, plus extra resources like extra comic book makers, cloud makers, different ways to communicate with me if you ever want to reach out, and some great articles that have some great resources in too. I know it's very overwhelming and it's a lot, but there's great things that when you have a few minutes to just try one new thing, I highly recommend it. See what your kids like. I also let them vote. We do it. These are great for choice boards too, different activities to add to a choice board. Yes, the Pixton, your kids will love it, because then you can create like a class photo and change the backgrounds. It is free, and you can pay for a monthly membership to get more like themes, and then you get credit, but then you can cancel it too whenever you want. So I did that to get a couple themes that I wanted to have at all times. But once you purchase them, then they're yours forever. But my kids love making the Pixton, and then we have the class photo, and it's great. And they love using each other in the comics. Comics are a big hit at my school, just like I said, the graphic novels were. But if nobody has any questions, feel free. Thank you for coming tonight and giving up some of your evening on this Wednesday night. And that's it for me. If anybody has any questions, but feel free to bookmark that. I'll put that link in the chat one more time for you too, so you have it for the Wakelet that has everything in it for today. And like I said, I thank everybody, and I hope you got some great tips and resources that you can use.
That was fantastic, Jessica. Thank you so much. I know that I personally was like, oh my gosh, like I just want to go back in the classroom and like do all this stuff with my 8th graders. So that was super fun. Lots and lots of great resources. Thank you so much for presenting this evening. We're so happy to have you.
No
Thank
problem.
you all for joining us. I do want to make sure that you know about our next webinar, which I'm going to pull up here to remind me. So on March 8th, we are back to our normal 8 o'clock time, and we will have Stephanie Adams from Dorchester County, and she's going to be presenting on accessibility, why it's important, and some things that you can do to make sure that the content you're presenting is accessible. So please make sure you join us for that. Check out our website, msetonline.org. And in the menu, you'll see an events tab, and that's where you can find our upcoming webinars. So again, I want to thank you for spending your Wednesday evening with us, and I hope you'll join us on March 8th.